Good morning, everybody, and welcome along to our council meeting for the 20th of August 2025 at the slightly delayed start time of 11:30 because we had some other things on this morning. But hopefully those people joining online got a sleep in. Councillor Gillespie will lead us in a couple.
Kia ora. Ngā mihi o te rā I te whānau hui nei tātou ia whaka akua tātou meina mea e whakapono ana tātou umi e hui e kai.
Thank you very much. Apologies this morning. I have apologies from Lindley and from Martin. We're happy to move. Thank you, Sarah. And Sarah will be an apology for an early finish. Thank you, Sally and Sarah. Those in favour? Against? Everybody on our public forum list this morning. Confirmation of minutes begin on page 7 from our last meeting, which was on the 12th of August. Somebody is happy to move that those are accurate. Thank you, Sally. Seconded. Thank you, Ian. And those in favour? Against? Carried. Declarations of interest begin on page 10. Just a reminder to be vigilant and stand aside from decision making when a conflict arises between your role as a member, any private or other external interests that you have.
We have a conflict on items 8 and 9 today.
8 and 9?
Suspect other councillors with the same one.
Yeah, likewise.
Anything else that anybody needs to know? Good. And we welcome Vincent Community Board Chair Jamie Prong to give us an update on what's happening in this patch.
How are we doing? I'm loving the tutus around the neck. Also noticing the new cameras. Quite a cool new setup. All right, so I'll just keep this brief because it's obviously been a bit of a quieter time with elections coming up. The Community Board's final meeting will be held on September the 8th, with our main focus being the community and promotions grants, which, what I've been told this morning, quite packed. So that's quite an exciting time. It's always good to be able to support the different things that are out there in the community. Kaimoana Haiho Riverside Park is still moving ahead, and fingers crossed there will still be an opening hopefully next month. We'll hopefully know a little bit more about that early next week. Around Blossom Festival weekend, potentially. But yeah, everyone will keep up to date on that one. The Dunstan Turf team are busy fundraising to get the rest of the funds together, and they're hoping to get started on that project up at Dunstan High School by the end of this year, which is quite exciting. The Manahikea Valley Community Hub, I see they're still actively fundraising, but I understand that they're very grateful for the extra boost that has come from the long-term plan, so thank you all for that. We're also excited to see that the Blossom Festival is coming together quite nicely, and Bet Martin's very busy today with that. We're also grateful for your support in the long-term plan, moving that from being a promotions grant to the tourism fund, meaning that we've now got a little bit more there in the pot to support other exciting and new events that are happening out in the community. And lastly, I just wanted to take a moment, because I think it's the last time I'll be sitting to thank all of you for your support on PCB, especially over the last 2 months. Your support around recommendation. Should we pause? Testing. All right, so yeah, lastly, I'd just like to thank you all for your support, especially over the last 12 months, especially around the recommendations of funding for the Riverside Park, Manahikea Valley Community Hub, Dunstan Turf, the Blossom Festival funding change, the retention of the outdoor swimming pool, the retention of some of the halls, and most recently the gifting of land for the Abbey Field, which has been amazing, and that group is especially grateful for that. I think we've shown that even with the changes to how rates are done, council and community boards can still all work together very well, and looking forward to seeing what council and community boards do again in the future. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jayden. Has anybody got any questions? Much appreciated. Over to Sally, and she is going to lead her papers for community vision and experience.
Thanks. So just give me 1 second, please. Okay, item number 25.17.3, amendment to fees and charges for the Aquafit membership concession rate, and we have Carly and David.
Thanks, Sally. This is a little fix-up, a little oversight on my behalf, where we've listed our fees and charges for our aquatics classes at $5 instead of $95. So we just need to amend that. Yeah, we were going for a 17% discount, not a 97% discount. So.
Anyone got any questions, councillors? It's pretty straightforward, isn't it? And it reinstates the proper concession price. So I would be happy to move that. Do we have a seconder? Sarah, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, item number 25.17.4, Parks and Reserves bylaw, and we have.
Thank you. So this report's asking council permission to use a special consultative process to seek community feedback on a Parks and Reserves bylaw. Recall we've been working on for the last maybe 3 years, maybe longer, about freedom camping, whether we should have a freedom camping specific bylaw or not, and we opted to look at doing a Parks and Reserves bylaw that would cover that issue, as well as a number of other issues on council reserves, because with the growing population of the community, we're getting a lot of, I guess, other issues on reserves, such as parking, selling of cars, encroachments, and itinerant traders trading on reserves and things that we don't, which we could do something about. It's quite a complicated process through the Reserves Act, but having a bylaw would make that a lot simpler for us to manage and maintain, and keep our public open spaces areas so people can enjoy them without things such as nuisances going on them. So happy to answer any questions. Oh, I should say the public consultation phase will happen after the election, so that's what the proposal is.
Questions, councillors?
So just to be clear, this is in relation to the Reserves Act
Yes.
only. I guess that's the, in terms of the key messaging, and that's really important. We understand it relates to land that's subject to the Reserves Act. So, and I think it's important to understand as part of the consultative process, especially just what that one is. We have to go to some lengths to show what it is, or more importantly, what it's not. It ain't the lakeshore. But people will jump to some conclusions about what it relates to. It's Anderson Park, but it's not the verge next to Anderson Park, because that's part of the road. Some of those sort of things, because it's really easy to say, oh, it's about this, and get themselves confused as to which bit of land it relates to. So I'm sure that that's well covered, but I think we need to labour that point in all our comms in particular.
Sure.
Chrissy.
I think what Neil he's kind of dealt with my issue.
All right.
No, we're thinking along the same line, so that's good.
That's scary. It's not having much to do with the roads.
Just another point on roads. So it's like the roading bylaw will be updated over the next little while. So that should also deal with camping on roads through that process. So we should have all the council land sort of sorted eventually.
Yeah, just in the actual bylaw itself, under your definition of vehicle, you've got mobility. Sorry, I need my glasses. What am I doing? Mobility scooters, or other equipment. Would it need to have the qualification or other equipment? Right there,
Say that in mind. Where are you looking?
mobility scooters or other equipment used by persons with physical or neurological impairment. Because that to me reads like it can only be mobility scooters.
Let's have a slightly different version. My mind just says, well,
Oh, sorry, in the actual bylaw on
page 3.
page 3, yep, and page 42 of our agenda.
I've tidied that up, but it seems to be the script. Mine says,
Oh, it's just a question rather than like whether it should say wheelchairs or other mobility scooters or other equipment used by persons with
Oh.
Instead of scooters.
instead so yeah,
oh, okay.
just so in case there's something rather than, I mean, there may be something that
Other
we don't
mobility
know.
devices.
Correct.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
The devices though could be one of these. The terminology unfortunately is.
Yeah.
I'll have a talk to Duncan and get it right terminology.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so can I get someone to move recommendations A, B, and C? Emma and seconder Tracy, all those in favour? Against? Oh, so is there a D? I think where's the D?
After C.
Skip to me once before. It must be a long way down. So I don't see the D. Oh, am I on the wrong page?
Said this morning, we're so encouraged.
Yeah, on page 32.
Oh, I'm on the wrong page. I'm on the wrong page. Sorry, people. A, B, C, and D.
No silly questions.
Yeah, A, B, C, and D. Okay.
Right.
Okay, item number 25.17.5, proposed Miller's Flats Sports and Recreation Hub, page 53.
Thank you. So this paper seeks to ratify Eviat Valley Community Board resolution to allow the local community group to upgrade the Millers Flat Recreation Reserve at no cost to council other than ongoing maintenance, which we're anticipating be marginally more than we're spending on it at the moment. And council, as part of that project, will be an MOU with that group to tidy up all the announced health and safety management, etc. during that project. So happy to answer any questions.
Questions, councillors?
Yep. The bit that's got me, those concerns, is the right word, is about the MOU and the expectation that's being created here. And what worries me is that it gets down a path to an expectation from the group, whoever it is, whatever form they take, about what's going to happen going forward. And you mentioned we got probably some maintenance, but it's clear about just what exactly they're going to do, when it's going to be done, how it's going to be done, and the expectations are well managed and controlled, because it worries me as the risk is otherwise they might think they're doing something and we think they're doing something different in terms of the scope.
So that will be ironed out through the MOU. Essentially, they're doing what, like on a larger scale, something like a Rotary Club or Lions Club would do up something and hand it back to council. We are making sure that we've got that all those processes in place, health and safety plans, SSSPs, and who's going to manage that project, how it's going to be paid for, all that stuff will be worked out, will be part of the MOU. Yeah, it will be quite tight and tidied up. Should be no misunderstanding of who's delivering what and to what standard.
Probably the concern that I had was making sure that the MOU was tight, and the expectation is that there will be no misunderstanding about who's doing what, who's in charge of what part of the project, who's in charge of health and safety, the detailed design, because we want to be really clear on what is being built there and that it meets our requirements as a public facility, not anything being kind of shortcuts or anything like that taken for the sake of saving some money. We need to be crystal clear on what is going to be handed back to us before it's begun.
But the only thing then the recommendation should include something along the lines of subject to a satisfactory MOU being developed. So it is quite clear saying this is not your final approval. There's work to be done here. The way that reads at the moment, Peter just goes and gets effect to the resolution.
Yeah.
But I think it's more important to that group to know quite clearly saying actually, because especially when it's a steering group, okay, well, who are they? They don't exist. It's just a group of people that are steering somewhere. And they might be going in different directions to each other or to what we want them to do as well. So I wonder whether it's as simple as putting in front of B, subject to an appropriate memorandum of understanding being entered into with the Miller's Flat Recreation Reserve Steering Group, and I don't like doing anything with steering groups. Well, whatever it's going to be, because that's the other thing. Is what is the entity ultimately?
Yeah.
Because
The steering
group's not it's not an entity. It's just a it's like the Neil and Sarah Club.
Oh,
No, that's what I mean.
that'd be effective.
I'm sure it would be, but
I think that's good direct stuff. Pretty much what you said, adding that in there, and then.
yeah, then it gives us scope to actually do it, because I think I'm satisfied that the staff know what they're going to do here. What I'm worried about is that the recipients of this may see it as something different. So someone's just giving me a big rubber stamp and I'm away, and it's up and laughing and have expectations that can't be delivered on the way that they expect. So that's my only comment. If the recommendation was changed to reflect that in B, then I'd be happy.
So they've still got the last of the funding to be approved, but they can stage it. Yep, they've spoken to you about that, haven't they?
Staged.
So for them to get their funding, they're going to have to be some sort of formal entity, aren't they?
So they're everything's running through TVET projects.
Right. So that, okay, I think that's what the recommendation needs to reflect.
That's
Yeah.
That's TVET prospects that we're going to have the
MOU with.
MOU with.
They get
because-
the management group of that.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, so they'd hold the money.
Yep.
And everything will get paid through TVET prospects.
Because otherwise the TVET, Miller's Flat Recreation Reserve Steering Group doesn't exist. It's not an entity.
Yeah.
Prospects.
Sorry, Tracy.
Has there been any, I mean, obviously when this comes back to council, has there been any work done on what the ongoing costs are going to be? Insurance, all those type of things?
So
Anything required?
there'll be a small increase in depreciation for those new assets, and there'll be a marginal increase in operational costs, but we maintain them both place anyway, so that essentially replacing like with like and adding a pump back, which will be the new item there. And the artificial turf will have a year or so's maintenance for the manufacturer, that one. And then just put it into operational maintenance as we do with all the other things and playground checks we do anyway, and things like that. So it's not going to be a massive amount. Can't put a dollar figure on it. A couple of thousand maybe at most.
So the recommendation is that A, we receive the report and accept the level of significance. B, subject to the approval of a memorandum of understanding with TVET prospects, approves the recommendation of the TVET Valley Community Board redevelopment of the Miller's Flat Recreation Reserve in line with the proposed priorities put forward by the Miller's Flat Recreation Reserve Steering Group as depicted in plans attached to this report. B notes that council funding has not been sought for this project. Indeed, authorises the chief executive to do all that is necessary with respect to the
Subject to signing. Anyone?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, but not with signing.
Well, execution. And are we happy that because it's the only place the paper doesn't mention TVET prospects, so we're okay with?
It is who it is.
That's in services.
I move that.
and Sarah seconding it. All those in favour? Against? Carry. Okay. Item number 25.7.6, page 63, and that is the Cromwell Junior and Senior. And we've got Zelda and David.
And Gareth.
Oh, and Gareth.
Thank you. So the report is just obtaining your approval for entering into a lease with the junior and senior football clubs for the lease of just the pavilion itself and Alpha Street, Cromwell. So the proposal is in terms of our leasing and licensing policy, and we recommend that we enter into a lease agreement with them for a period of 5 years with 2 rights of renewal. The rental that we propose is based on an income that we got from the parties that is also listed in part of the report. Final expiry date 30th of June 2040.
A good solution to what is otherwise an underused, under-maintained asset that's down at a very popular venue for football. And saves us rushing off and doing a whole lot of stuff.
This has no effect on the money that's in a couple of years away in the LTP for upgrading those facilities, can it?
It'll probably bring it forward.
Yeah. So we're going
So that can, because they're looking at, obviously, part of the reason they want to do that is to get on with that. So we're happy that we're going to move that forward and
100%.
get on that, still put our in.
Yeah.
And that allows them to then go seek funding for that, and we're move forward as a
Yeah. And I think to that
needs to
point,
move.
kudos to these clubs for working together. You know,
Yep.
they haven't in the past, and I think that's a really cool thing to acknowledge as well.
But they're very keen to get that moving, and the quicker they can, the better it will be. And for us to do it. I'll move that.
Sarah moves A, B and C, and do I have the seconder? It's now. Those in favour? Against? Carried.
Never used you.
On page, double here, 72. Road stopping adjacent to 15 Alpha Street, Cromwell. So,
This is just to get approval for the road stopping at 15 Alpha Street. It's just basic road stopping as the building encroaches on the current road. There is no networks and services in the area that is being closed. So just recommending that we proceed with the application.
questions?
Who drew that road?
Yeah.
Yeah, into the funds.
Just out of interest, I from obviously looking at the aerial photo straight down onto a roof, is how this house was built. I'm presuming it was built with the right consents and things. How did that actually happen to get through on a road reserve?
That's a good
That's a
question.
good question.
I think it's the same as those other ones that we've had. It's
Yeah.
on the person building to ascertain where exactly the boundaries are. And a lot
Yeah,
of
but-
people just look at it and go, well, that's the boundary without it actually having been surveyed.
We would have signed off on it.
We
Council.
don't go out and measure it though.
Shows the house as being within its legal title.
Yeah.
The fence they were measuring it all from wasn't actually in its right place to start with. It is so common.
Oh, I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
Just I wasn't sure if this was what it was.
Yeah.
And at the time this was done, a long time ago, stuff back in the borough days.
And would it,
That road was a gravel track.
yeah. Any questions? Someone move the recommendation?
Yeah.
Payment, second it? Deal?
Okay.
Those in favour? Against?
Thank you.
So,
Thanks.
Over to Cheryl.
thanks, we've got that to come in, but Kerry can. Kerry.
So what do you-
Probably a little bit.
Do you want to do the other ones first? Do you want to do
Yes, on top of it.
25.17.16
Yeah.
first?
Text Patrick to come in. So just waiting for him to come in.
Okay.
You could just jump and I could do my one. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Do it.
up to you. Right, agenda item 25.17.10. It's going to give us an update on the plan change information that's coming and where we're at and what it means for us.
On all three documents, you're wanting me to cover?
No, just the plan stop legislation
Okay,
10, page 100.
okay. Essentially, the government came out with an announcement on stopping plan change work. That was widely put out in the media. There's a fact sheet sitting behind this document, but essentially, for our purposes, the main point is that we have essentially not been doing work outside of that scope. We have just focused on doing the work that is needed to prepare for a plan change, and that work can continue. And that is in line with the fact sheet, which had restrictions setting aside what we couldn't do. We're not intending notifying until after the new legislation is introduced. So all our workings have been with that mindset of not putting expense to the ratepayer or work or energy in things that may have to evolve. Plan change 19 specifically, remaining appeals can continue as hearings have been held, and plan change 23 is a private plan change and is exempt from those changes. So those were identified in the fact sheet that was supported behind this document. The detail of the new legislation is not yet known, but it will potentially hold up the notification of plan changes in 2026 that don't meet the automatic exemptions that were listed, or discretionary criteria for notification applying to the minister, and at which point we would provide a suitable update to council when any further detail is available in terms of what the impact might be, where we might consider an automatic exemption would be applicable. Application to the minister might be appropriate. So essentially, we're not spending money on work that is not aligned already with what the ministry has actually alluded.
Thank you. Any questions? No. We'll receive the report, please. Sarah, seconded Tracy, all in favour? Yes, carried. Thanks, Fiona.
Great socks too, by the way.
Oh, let's have a look.
Yeah.
I had the two today, I didn't pick her up there.
What's your learn?
My one's was.
Should I put my cap on?
I might put mine on.
Yeah, we're blessed.
I've already had a message from someone saying I wasn't looking very yellow.
This is just on our way.
Okay.
We can wait 1 minute. Okay.
Yellow eats beetles.
Just a reminder, there is, you can either donate online or there is a box in the meal room.
Anyway, go back to the bridge, so getting to the irrigation company. They can shut sticks, let's complain about it. Gravel bar, they load up six bridge. So the irrigation company asked me if I wanted to go and get with another C. So he said there's not a problem. I was talking to Carly, supposed to go back with the test.
You can come straight.
That's the receipt.
Joyce.
It's good.
So we are at item number 25.17.11 on page 106, the August wastewater compliance status update.
Kia ora. I take this report as read. Very high level summary, the ORC has accepted the request to extend the abatement notice, Roxburgh until April 2026 and Renfrewley until June 2026. Happy to take on any questions.
Questions?
Thing is, everything's going as it should be. We're doing what we should be doing to correct our non-compliances and working towards the right outcomes going forward.
We have got
Every council can say that.
You can.
So if there's no more questions, the recommendation is that we receive the report. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Emma and Sally. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So item number 25.17.17, Use of pressure sewer. No. Sorry, on page 101.
Geez, you really.
I was flipping through it, wasn't I? So
Crikey.
25.17.12 Bannockburn water main and reservoir procurement. Patrick.
Was so early, the report writer Josh isn't here, but I obviously helped him with it, but I can
Okay.
just, as Joyce said, I'll take the report as read, but the general gist of it is that we want to replace the water main that's underneath the Bannockburn Bridge with a stainless steel pipe. We need to put a main, a falling and a rising main up the main Bannockburn Road from that bridge up Hall Road to the reservoir. We also need to increase or improve storage there for resilience and growth. That's the cusp of it. The tender, if you approve this report, will go out as two separate packages of work, one for the pipeline and one for the reservoir. We feel like we can get some gains on specialist suppliers for the reservoirs. That's worked for us in the past, rather than put it under one project. If it was a larger project, we'd probably consider putting it together. So yeah, other than that, probably one of the things you might have noticed is the budget is 2.4 million. The current estimate we've got is about 2.5. I am sort of fairly confident though with the environment we've got and the tenders we've had in the last 12 months that we'll get competitive pricing. But, you know, if it's over and above that, we'll obviously have to come back to you. We'll have to talk to Peter. But we're sort of fairly confident that once the market tells us what it looks like, we should be able to get on with it. Yeah. So, do you have any questions?
Considering most of the pipelines around will be steel, plastic, wire, stainless steel under a bridge, when the galvanised pipe's been there for the last 100 years.
It's much more well protected. It's a lot more resilient. It's a key line that goes between Cromwell and Bannockburn. It's pretty critical to get that right underneath that bridge.
And as dear as the stainless steel to galvanised.
It's quite a bit dearer, yeah.
Might be 100,000 you're looking for.
And let's face it, nothing stops tenderers telling us that they think they can do us a better deal for stainless, but you've got to weigh up the benefits, disbenefits of that. So, yeah.
Just asking.
Fair enough.
Patrick, have you got to hand the growth protections for Bannockburn that you based the project on?
Not on me, no.
On your head? I'd just be interested over what time period did you the growth protections?
I think it was up to 2052 or 53.
Right, so
It's typically done over a
Yeah.
30-year period.
30 years.
We've just engaged
Yeah.
to revisit those.
Yeah, we did it in 2022 or 2023, and then we reviewed it again this year. They just did an update of that. They didn't do a full redo of the growth numbers, but they did an update of
they presented in the form of a low, medium and high?
Yes,
And you would have taken the high?
yes.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, just to clarify, the main that comes from Cromwell already is a rising and falling one? Just, I suppose just the rising main is only when you get to the bridge that you're going to then double it up to become a rising main and a separate falling main?
Yeah, there's a pump station on the
Pump station, that's right, there is too, yeah, okay, so single feed to the bridge, to the pump station, and then you're going to do the same as what we did in Cromwell, put a dedicated rising main. I suppose that the new main will be the rising one?
Yes, but so the issue there is there's low pressure in certain areas of that network, so it's to deal with a lot of that.
Yep.
So the fire service can have a good support there in terms of the water, that pressure.
And just to pick up on Stu's question about the stainless is for the bridge section
Yes,
only?
only.
Yeah, not the rest of the pipe.
Yeah.
Other questions? And I have, the recommendation is that we receive A, B, and C. Do I have a mover and seconder, please? Nigel? Sally? Those in favour? Against? Carried.
Before you go on to the next one, Cheryl, I've just had a message come through. Just a reminder, our new microphone is amazing. So it does mean that any side conversations or anything that people have in the background will be picked up. So, and it would make it difficult for people to hear. So, Dylan and David could be chatting or just of note.
Wasn't
Sorry,
them
it
again.
wasn't you guys, but Sarah can
So
hear
it wasn't them
everything
again.
and it's distracting for people. Thank you, Cheryl.
Right, so we are item number 25.17.13, status report, Alexander Waterman Renewals Project. Patrick again.
Yeah, once again, here's Josh here. Yeah, sorry guys, I'll introduce Josh White. He's the project manager for the Bannockburn project. So we just got the nod for that, so it's good. And Josh is also the project manager for the Alexander Water Main. So things are going pretty well there. Josh has actually just been out on site today. We've pretty much done the bulk of the work that's required on Enterprise Street. So we should be out of there in a week or two.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sweet.
And then the intention is to move up to Bridge Hill, sort of mid-September. Now, the thing you may get a bit of queries about is the detour that will be in place sort of from September to mid-October. We've done a bit of preemptive letter dropping in that to people that live up in that area. So we'll be doing more, Facebook, radio, whatever we need to do. But essentially, the access to Earnscleugh coming from up the bridge turning right will remain open, but the access coming from Earnscleugh to Earnscleugh Road and down into Alexandra, heavy vehicles will have to go up Conroy's Road and lighter vehicles will be able to go up Aranui Road. So we'll keep everyone informed, but it will create a bit of disruption. We've sort of told you guys about this a few times before, but until it gets right out there and people know how they're affected, is probably when you'll get the feedback. But we're keeping in touch with stakeholders up there and letting everyone know what's going on. So, and here they've actually been pretty good at keeping the people informed as well. That's the contractor. So,
Any questions?
Not really a question, just I really wanted to say I love seeing all the green dots. So I really love green dots.
yeah.
So thank you for doing it. And the only other thing was put the messages into the school newsletters.
Yep.
Because then that's the quickest way to get the word around.
True.
If you haven't got them in a school newsletter, stick them in a school newsletter.
Okay, thanks for that. Feedback.
So the recommendation is that we receive the report. Do I have a mover and seconder? Tracy? Again? All those in favour? Against? Carried. So we go to page 116. The status report for Cromwell Drinking Water Upgrade Project.
Okay, like I said, I take the status report as read. I suppose the highlights there is it's coming up in a later report that Kerry's got in terms of the interim protozoa barrier for that site. The two red risks that I have there will be somewhat mitigated by that. So that's good from that perspective. Work is ticking along. We're trying to work with the contractor to ensure as little disruption as possible when we commission the bore field and eventually also commission the water treatment plant. There's a lot of switching on and switching off, different pipes have to be live and so forth. So there's still quite a bit of work happening there, but in terms of the material and delays and that we talked about before, it seems like they're sort of on track. So that risk is sort of diminishing. So it'll really be about getting that interim barrier in place, as long as you guys approve it. And then making sure that all the switchovers that we do in the commissioning is done as efficiently as possible without affecting stakeholders.
And
I'm going to save one for when the agenda item comes up about the barrier.
Okay, so Tracy?
yeah, sorry. Where are we? Bear with me. It's very funny. Sorry. Just. With the protozoa, that's what we're talking about in this one, isn't it? God, if I.
Next one.
Yeah.
I've got the wrong one, sorry. My screen's going funny. Apologies.
It's okay.
Apologies.
Okay, so the recommendation is that we receive the report. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Ian and Tamar, all those in favour? Against? Carried. So now we go on to page 118, which is the status report for the Renfrew Pediaroa Water Treatment Plant's protozoa barrier installation project.
Yes, once again, take the status report as being read and similar to Cromwell, but openly expressed with things going on with water notices and that. Interim protozoa barriers being put in place as we speak. That will mitigate the issues we've got at Renfrew. We will focus on getting Pediaroa up and running first because we'll have that interim barrier at Renfrew. A lot of the work will be working side by side. A lot of the work is similar, same contractor and everything. So they're trying to do the two container water treatment plants at the same time. But we'll sort of balance it up a bit when we first put them in place, complete the construction, do the commissioning, with the priority being Pediaroa so that we're not having to run water out from Ranfurly to Pediaroa. But yeah, like similar to the other project, the materials and everything seem to be going along well. It can always change, as you know, at the drop of a hat, but I'm fairly confident that things are going along fairly smoothly with that project.
Any questions?
Yeah, just a the public setting, can you reiterate the time frame that you anticipate that might be turned on for Renfrew, the protozoa barrier, the temporary?
In 21, everything's going to plan. I was informed this morning that the container is on site. It's being connected. Voltec is on site. We'll be testing in the coming days, and if everything goes to plan, 1st of September we will be commissioning the plant. Then we are meeting with colleagues tomorrow to set up the communication plan so that we can amend the water safety plan, make changes to Inika and also a commerce notification as well as the notification to Taumata Arawai.
No other questions? So the recommendation is that we receive the report. Do I have a mover and a seconder? June, Sally, all in favour? So now we want to just carry on.
Sounds fun.
Got another 20 minutes.
Yeah, schedule that.
So,
keep going.
page 120, the normal water supply temporary protozoa barrier.
Like the report is read, as you know, the Cromwell water supply is non-compliant with protozoa treatment. Recent liaison with the Water Services Authority, Taumata Arawai, resulted in us having to do a water advisory. Steps have been taken for installation of a temporary barrier at Ranfurly to significantly shorten the advisory period at both Ranfurly and Pediaroa. Taumata Arawai's compliance monitoring and enforcement strategy published during July 2025 clearly identifies the expectation to have barriers in place, and this is a proactive action to ensure we don't need to issue a boil water advisory to Cromwell. It will be significantly difficult to manage that, and it will come at a great cost. So the temporary plant is available to lease from Queenstown. There is one correction within the report. We indicated that it was shown as a lease cost of $500 a month. That's apparently $1,300 a month, but in the greater cost of the project, it's minimal. The estimated cost of the temporary barrier is expected to be around $360,000. And there are sufficient funds within the approved budget. So we seek council approval to install containerized UV plant at Cromwell to provide a temporary barrier while construction of the new plant is undertaken.
It is saying as to $500 going to 1,300.
Yeah.
It's not going to make any difference. That was catered for.
That's
60,000 anyway.
It's not in the 360,000. It'd be like an operational cost.
Oh, right.
It
Okay.
was because we were working back and forth with QLDC on their lease, and they came back. We did a legal check. They did a legal check, and then they put their final sum based on the value of it and covering the depreciation of the value of that water treatment plant.
We leased it off them.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
We give it back straight after we get a new one in.
Correct.
And at least ceases.
for example of how the councils can actually share.
Yeah, it's been good. Similar to the one at Renfrew and Selwyn. Yeah. This one's been really good. And that's the value of building relationships at a staffing level as well. We'll pick up the phone and say, hey, can you help us out here on that?
So if that system works so well that you can plug them in, why didn't we become a part of that? Because the containerised model fits the purpose of what it's designed for.
That's what we're doing at Ranfurly and Pateroa, but for larger schemes, you need a more permanent, larger, substantial treatment plant. You get a much larger volume.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I guess that as a compartmentalised treatment plant, two would do more water than one. So I guess what I'm saying is if in growth, do we have a spare if something like that comes along where we have to treat more water? Or do you have to build a plant big enough to treat the growth?
Yeah, correct. Just like we've done at Lake Dunstan, where we put enough room and where you could put another membrane back in there when the growth tips over a certain amount, program it, get your funding, put that in. And we've done that at Cromwell as well within the design of the treatment plant there.
So this barrier is a direct response and being proactive to what Manaharai are like to send our way, as they did with Ranfurly and Pateroa. So that the adage is quite simple. The water's okay to drink today, but tomorrow it might not be.
Yes.
Because the mate's going to change, and we're going to be front footing that, so we're able to respond. But it does mean that pies and moorings on the Utility Society will not have protozoa barrier, but it's not our water supply, so not our problem. Pies village from a bore, that got a protozoa barrier in it, or is that going to be an issue for us as well?
Shouldn't be an issue for us. With the concern with Cromwell is the fact that our demand's very low at the moment, but during the summer months it increases. It's bores, but when that extraction comes, we start drawing water from the lake, that we are concerned that the Water Services Authority will pick up on that and then actually require us to issue a bore water.
So the pies are under supply because it's from a bore, not from the lake further back, so there's not a connection, so less risk in terms of protozoa.
Yeah,
issue.
Exactly. It's a confined bore.
Yeah.
And Lake Dunstan's still seen as an open water source, even though the bores are they're adjacent to the lake, about 30 odd metres deep, pulling from the gravels beside the lake. It's still essentially lake water rather than a confined aquifer.
So can you remind us what protozoa actually is and where it comes from, just so it's quite clear that we know what we're dealing with?
Protozoa is a cyst that lives in the gut of animals, and it's Cryptosporidium and Giardia is the names that scientists give to it, and they typically can make you very sick.
Yep. So in the gut of animals, as in
cattle, sheep, sheep,
not humans.
No, not humans, but
so the protozoa is coming from animal contamination.
Exactly.
Not from the discharge of wastewater from water treatment plants, wastewater treatment plants, that sort of stuff.
And chlorination is not a sufficient barrier against that. We need UV treatment for it.
So probably at some stage, I think the important thing to me out of this is that to help our community understand what this is actually about.
Yes.
Because if you said to most people what's protozoa, they got no idea.
We don't have protozoa in the South Island, do we?
See what I mean?
And
we do.
take me through, picking up on before. If we've got a well and we've got a man-made well we put down to take water out of beside a lake, why don't we just take it out of the lake if it doesn't mean it's for purpose?
Queenstown never had a protozoa, confirmed protozoa sample. Then the event happened, when was it, 2023? So you can take samples of to test for protozoa now, and it can be clear. And just the sample you take 5 minutes later could have it in it.
You know, but I guess I'm saying the well that we've got in Cromwell.
Yes.
You take the water from now. Basically, you're telling me it's not recognised as a groundwater tank. So what do we have it to spend the money in the first place? Not take it out of the water of the river and treat it.
It is concerned a groundwater take, but when we have high demand, the more water you take, the wider the tone goes out, and that goes into Lake Dunstan. And that's our concern, is that if the water services authority follows up on it, require us.
So what you're saying, that's Lake Dunstan in my cup.
Yep.
The bore goes down to here, to the surface.
Yes.
That's okay, but then you start dragging too much, start sucking it from there, back up to the build out the pipe. And
Exactly, yes. It's all about the risk.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't have the protozoa, just a bore is still a bore.
Yep. Yeah, I understand the view.
And given how Tamata Arawa have reacted with Granville and, you know, with Peniaroa, I mean, nice on Cromwell. Devastating. Anyway, any further questions?
No, but I guess, and we've had a couple of people say, well, I've never gotten sick from that. And we had someone this morning speak to us who was involved in Havelock North, who talked about a 6-month-old baby that then spent the next 9 months of their life in hospital with ongoing lifelong medical conditions from drinking water that was contaminated. And it's not about, oh, I just was a bit crook for 2 days. For some people, this has lifelong implications, and we don't should be putting that on any of our people.
And I had a friend of my son was affected by the Queenstown outbreak, and he was very sick for quite some time.
I think this is a good solution. It's a really good solution.
Picking on what you're saying, for many years, we as a council have said it's not impacting us. The Ministry of Health weren't enforcing the guidelines, and they were guidelines then, weren't being enforced, so there was no pressure to do it. And we did what most normal people would have done, saying, we don't need to spend it, why would we spend it? Now we're in a situation where the world has changed significantly. There are reported cases quite regularly. It happened just next door in Queenstown. Who would have thought it could happen there? And this is the right thing to do. And unfortunately, I guess with the right thing comes a significant cost. So I'm happy to move the recommendations.
Seconder? Favour? Yes. Carried.
We got all day.
We go to page 124. Use of pressure sewer system and procurement of Dunstan Road articulation extensions.
I think the report is read. It's quite a lengthy report, so I'll try to keep it short as possible. Plan change 19 rezoned land and parts of Cromwell, Alexander and Clyde from rural residential to large lot residential. These properties are currently serviced for wastewater by septic tanks and private bores and supplies. For development to proceed in these areas, connection to council water and wastewater services is required. The area under discussion is approximately 1.2 kilometers north of Lake Dunstan Road. Oh, sorry, Dunstan Road, not Lake Dunstan. Apologies. Involving a number of different property owners. The first property to develop is the furthest from the Alexandra wastewater network on the corner of Walden Road. This requires the entire reticulation to be constructed from the outset. Facilitate the servicing of land along Dunstan Road, council is constructing the main reticulation network. This allows developments along Dunstan Road to connect into the council main network. This project is 100% funded from development contributions income. And the problem with this area is it's very flat, and conventional gravity system will be very, very expensive and very deep, hard to maintain. As a result, we are suggesting a pressure sewer system, which will be more suitable for the conditions and the circumstances, the challenges that this area presents. If council agrees to the proposed approach, all of the following criteria needs to be met for a pressure sewer system to be considered. Residential or large lot residential zoning resulting in low density connections and low flows. Flat terrain, gravity pipes as recommended, minimum grades resulting in depths greater than 5 meters. And alternative alignment is not possible due to different property ownership. Numbers of connections influence the whole of life cost for each system, gravity or pressure. Are sufficient funds available to construct the pressure sewer along Dunstan Road, and this can be done along with the water reticulation. We seek council approval to execute a detailed design of low pressure wastewater system for enabling of the large lot residential zone on Dunstan Road and procure construction on that basis. Any questions?
Yep. No, I seen you other one more. You know.
Oh, I just, looking at the schematic on page 126, is it kind of like a septic tank that then connects to our system?
It's a mini pump station, basically. It's a chamber with a pump in it, and it will have a control panel, and it will pump certain set points into our system. And the property, shall I say, the private responsibility will terminate at the boundary kit, and then from there it will be council.
So that'll be on each property?
On each property, yeah. Yes.
So my question was about that, because what it says to me is this: if you go to Christchurch, this is everywhere because of the lack of gravity.
Yep.
So every property, because when I first went and said, what's that? And basically, yeah, it's a holding tank. It says dump it in here, pump it out, put it into the pressurized system. And there's many a place that we've had situations where, I think Bannockburn Road's a good example, where there's a wastewater treatment line comes past all those properties. Don't connect to it because it's a pressurised main. The same coming in from Pisa, why we've got a pump station at Lowburn. It dumps into there and then pressurised main again. So I guess this just shows to me with where developments have got to, what you need to do going forward, and probably it's ultimately cheaper in some respects. What's the cost to where it falls to get your waste into that system? Yeah. That's the best schematic I've ever seen of it. It's really good. And it's a really good report. Then maybe because I just kind of knew what it was about, that might help me, but it was.
Yeah, we did some. Well, Josh did some research, and he talked to what is it, Dunedin, Tasman, and Waimak district.
Yeah,
and they've got little articulation setups there that seem to function quite well. And you know, when we went through the design process, we were just hanging on tooth and nail to try and retain gravity, but it was just too expensive.
Pushing that sort of stuff uphill with the point and sticks quite difficult.
Yeah, and we had to take the whole zone into account, not just the two developments that are coming up. So when you looked at that full picture and what's going to be coming, this came out as the best option, as much as we prefer not to use a pressure system as part of a major reticulation setup. This has come out as the best option for this example.
We typically have a natural bias towards gravity, but in this case, this is the better solution.
I think West Melton, certainly the new part of West Melton, is all.
Oh, is it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like the Wilfred off the Whedon's Ross Road, that suburb there, which is probably almost the size of what Clyde used to be type thing. It's 500 houses on it, and it's all going into riser main, pumped at the boundary.
Does every dwelling have its own connection to?
Similar to that diagram, each property will have a setup similar to that. That depends on a policy. That will probably be more in the guidelines that we suggest developing. Where if there's for instance, a granny flat on a property, then that could possibly connect into it and not necessarily need a second holding tank and pump.
Other questions? Okay, so do I have a mover for recommendations A to E? Nigel and Sally. Thank you. Those in favour? Carried. You.
Thank you.
I hope you just need to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect.
We are now moving back to page 91.
Just 1 hour away,
Yeah.
just in case anyone getting excited about something.
Today.
You're the only one who's brought it up 5 times.
Have more at 1:10.
Really?
Only when was lunch?
Yeah.
We're now going to be
1:31.
talking about a nomination for a hearing commissioner, fast track consent.
Don't waste declared interest, though, no
Yes,
part of the
Neil.
discussion or
Going
anything
to-
on this.
Back from the table and you're going to take it away.
Essentially, I'll take it as partly read, but the main points. In December 2024, the Fast Track Act Approvals Act came into law. Timeframes around what council was required to do are particularly tight. So a process was required to enable appropriate responses in advance of an application being received. So council at that point endorsed applications under the fast track in April 2024 was when we had been alluded that we would be receiving an application. Time has moved on. It was envisioned that it would be received June. It's moved to July, August, potentially maybe September. So that space is somewhat fluid. The reason this paper's been brought is because of the elections coming up soon. And Councillor Gillespie has chosen not to stand. So the paper essentially is looking at the timeframes around when we potentially may receive an application or not, and that if it's council still to nominate him as the selected panel member to the fast track legislation. So there are two options essentially. The first one is option one, that Councillor Gillespie is nominated to the expert panel as an independent commissioner beyond his current term as the elected councillor. And should he no longer be available post that, then that an expert panel potentially could be appointed by the Chief Executive Officer or Mayor. The advantages of this is that we have some consistency and particularly a time efficiency of being able to be in a position to respond to the Environmental Protection Authority should an application be received. And then alternatively, option two, that Councillor Gillespie is no longer nominated to the expert panel for the Matakana Gold Fast Track Consent as an independent commissioner representing CODC beyond his current term as an elected councillor. Advantages are not known advantages and disadvantages. Time taken to consider an alternative nomination. Legislative requirements are quite tight and fixed.
Questions?
You mentioned consistency. This is obviously going to be post-election and it's going to be an issue. I'm wondering if it should be the chief executive, because we don't know who's going to be sitting around the table. Consistency. That's my thought. I have no problem with the first part with Neil, but the second part, if Neil is no longer available, it's. Whenever.
I think the report that will come in September, the interregnum report, will actually fix that point you've just identified.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So basically, it outlines what should be done in that time period where councillors are no longer councillors, but the new council hasn't taken over.
Thank you.
Happy?
Those are two kind of separate issues.
No,
So the same. And I guess it will all depend on the timeline looks like. Up until the 11th of October, I think everybody is comfortable that it be Neil in the hot seat, and beyond the 11th of October, it may still be Neil. It'll just be down to whether he is available or not going past election day. And I guess depending on where we're at, we probably need a resolution C that enables the chief executive. You want to put or mayor? Because depending on when it is, it might.
And you could, but if it was all near, then it assumes then that it's within the normal sequencing, i.e. up until the 10th of October, and the original resolution would stand, wouldn't it? Because people are still councillors up until the point of the election day. Beyond that, in that interregnum period, that's where the doubt exists. In a way, you might not need it. But my call would only be needed in that period from October to whenever the new council is sworn in. Yeah, so 12 October to 24th, that's the only time that I'd be required, I would have thought, to make a decision, because no one else can make that decision.
And I guess that will be done as you in conjunction with Neil, because we've nominated Neil as Neil Gillespie, not as Councillor Gillespie. So it would only be if Neil was called on a day and then said he wasn't available that it would revert to you.
And also, there's an expectation that that those decisions are made just with in conjunction with the incoming mayor.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not like you just go wild for a couple of weeks.
So then you might want to put some words for that. Incoming in conjunction with the incoming.
We've got A, B and C now, have we? Reckon on that.
You can say something if you want to say something.
I'll wait and see what Wayne puts up.
C now reads authorises the chief executive in conjunction with the incoming mayor to pick another commissioner if needed. I would put another commissioner should Mr. Gillespie not be available. It's not necessarily the interregnum period. It's and then you could put in the interim. But I don't think it's doesn't.
Make an observation. B points, as it turns out, me as the independent commissioner. And it doesn't have an end date. So it's not affected, I read in the paper, it's not affected by that period. It's until then council resolves to do something different.
Yeah, but we've already resolved that it's going to be you. We only need a plan if you say no. And the only reason Peter would need to be acting is if it's in that in-between period when the council are not making a decision because they've not been sworn in yet. It would be if you said no on the 13th of October, Peter needs to be able to do something about it. Otherwise, even on the 13th
What would
of
happen if
October.
I said no on the 25th of October?
But they are meeting it.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
because that's why I read B as saying actually you're appointing me until whenever they put an application in, unless you revoke that at some stage and appoint someone else.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what we are comfortable with at this stage.
So if that's the case, the interim period is irrelevant because I'm it.
And, but the only thing would change is if on the 12th of October, you had a change of mind and you
Said no.
wanted to convey that, because if at that point.
You're going to appoint someone that's in the short time frame that Fiona was talking about. Yep. I'm only trying to make sure you don't get yourselves into a bind that doesn't work. But that makes sense. If something happens to me and my wife still can't do it.
Well, see, that doesn't quite connect. Your heart stops. Another commitment shouldn't be listening around when the period. It doesn't quite.
It should not be available. Forget the interim period because it's post 24 October as well.
Or unavailable.
Maybe it's authorising the chief executive during the interregnum period. Because that's when my
risk is.
That's when the decision making is.
Yeah.
In conjunction with the incoming mayor.
But then if I was to say on the 25th of October after your first meeting and say no, then you've got to convene a meeting real quick to appoint someone else.
You could do that.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'm not planning on it, by the way.
No, I mean, like, for the meeting up. Yeah, I can get a couple.
You have been in the right part of that resolution to make sense. Cheryl's happy to move that. I'm happy to second. Thank you, Tracy. Those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. We move along to page 94 to talk about appointment of hearings panel commissioner.
Sort of essentially similar flavour. I'll take it as read essentially. The hearing panels has a period of time post the election pre-seeking a new hearing panel where we're in a position that we're unable to make decisions. So this is for an interim measure and logically have applied the current hearings panel, including the chair. The report reflects the current delegations and then essentially for elected councillors, the delegated authority of the present hearings panel will cease the day after the official results of the 11th of October are declared when those elected come into office. During the election period and before council appoints a new hearings panel, council's resource management functions, powers and duties will need to be exercised. Council's approach in the past has to have a sort of a transitional space. This is no different from past practices to deal with the situation. And the options that are tabled is to appoint the following hearings commissioners to the hearing panel until the new panel is appointed by council post-election, being the independent chair Neil Gillespie, Martin McPherson, Ian Cooney and Tracy Patterson, and equally to appoint Neil Gillespie to the hearings panel as an independent commissioner for a period of 6 months following the appointment of a new hearings panel post-election to assist in that transitional period, conscious that at the moment we don't have a chair, and appoint an independent commissioner to chair the panel until a new chair is appointed. Appointment enables the continuation of our hearings panel to exercise the powers duties under the Resource Management Act, provides greater capability of the hearings panel to include Neil Gillespie as an independent commissioner and chairperson post that election. The disadvantages, there are no obvious disadvantages to this decision. Option 2, no appointment of an interim independent hearing panel. The advantages are not obvious, but the disadvantages are the functions that we rely on for the hearings panel will cease until such time as a new panel is appointed following the elections. This would be a significant inconvenience for our customers and create an unavoidable backlog of work and staff waiting for decisions to be made.
Explanatory, isn't it?
Sorry?
It's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it?
Yep, I think so.
Yeah.
We need to have a period of cover while nobody has been sworn in, regardless of who is back or who needs to be trained. And Neil offers that continuity to be able to deal with things in the interim period. Basis recommendations A, B, C, and D. Is somebody happy to move this? Thank you, Cheryl. Second, thank you, Nigel. Those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, 132. Consideration for remission of water charges. Oh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I seem to be coming to you guys about these each meeting now. I'm just going to take the report as read. It's basically another request to use your discretion. Slightly different in this aspect that there was a tenancy involved and that there was difficulty with the tenants in gaining and getting to inspect the property at any time. So this is the leak occurred while the tenants were there. My understanding is there was no agreement between the landlord and the tenant as to passing on any charges. The landlord accepted the costs associated with it, and I guess the rent would have paid for any water costs for this particular property. So I guess the recommendation is that the application be declined as per the policy. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions, and then we'll have a discussion. Right. Discussion is the second in space of 2 meetings that we've had in relation to water charges, and we know that the bills that people receive are going to become more and more significant as the volumetric charges increase. Also that they're in cost to providing water, and we have a policy that is currently being applied and has been applied to previous applicants.
So it's pretty straightforward. If you're landlord, and it's an unfortunate situation, but for landlords, the message is quite clear. You'd have appropriate tenancy agreements in place to cover this sort of situation and the obligations of your tenant. And you know, I'm sure that they've probably done things in good faith or whatever. And when it comes to some of these things, it doesn't work. And I don't see why the community should otherwise have to fund that issue between a landlord and a tenant.
So I think for me as well, it was a leaky outside tap, so you would see the water leaking. Whereas I think some of the other ones that we've had where they've been underground and you have no idea it's leaking, I think that's a different discussion and a different.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's my take on this as well. With the, you know, you can't see it. You can't see it. I mean, this is above ground. You should be able to see it. So yeah, I look at this differently too.
Further discussion?
Maybe.
Thank you. Seconded, Stu. Those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried.
Yeah. It's not so easy.
Oh, perfect. Dylan, we're going to come to you next while we wrestle up Amelia, please. So we will skip ahead to page 150 for the Central Otago helicopter view.
Oh, helicopter view.
My name is Point Crusoe.
The film clip. Check me bed. You got it out? No. New Zealand? No.
While Wayne's bringing that up, start as a few of the first slides are kind of more really introductory. So, yeah, look, bringing you this report to highlight, I guess, some information that we've pulled together as part of the thinking towards where we're going as a region, and particularly in relation to regional deals and what regional deals may be able to help us with. And some of that also has come to light around what future development looks like for Central Otago. So a few things, obviously you've got the report and I'll speak to the presentation, but to be really clear, this is a snapshot of a moment in time. And of course, snapshots and moments in time move. So as at the 8th of July, 2025, this is the best available information that I can share with you. Like everything, it comes with the cabinet. It's likely to change, either up or down. To gather the information, had conversations with colleagues across the organisation, and it relates to what has come through in the planning area, people who have flagged that they're looking at a potential development opportunity, and also what our previous BAU trends have looked like in development. We've filtered out what we think are the low likelihood of progressing in the new development area, and really only focused in this report around what is either moderate or high likelihood of progressing. Skip to the next one if you like, here, Wayne. Wayne, that's the wrong report.
That's the thing you gave me. The one we got. The page 154. Why do you give me this?
Was it?
Yep.
Apologies.
Looks quite good, though.
Can we?
I know.
The agenda.
I do. Stand by.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I can keep going while Wayne brings that up anyway. So the high level points over the next decade with zero constraints. And when I refer to constraints, I refer to the building or construction sector can employ enough staff and get hold of enough supplies, and council can also staff and resource the consenting and processing part of the organisation, and all the other bits that come together to allow a house to come together. So those, thanks Wayne. So those are the constraints I refer to. So with zero constraints, we would see over the next decade, just over 6,500 new dwellings would be forecast to be built in Central Otago. That results in 41,500 total resident population by 2035. That's a 63% growth from where we are today. Obviously, that's going to put pressure on existing infrastructure, particularly our hard infrastructure, but also social infrastructure if there isn't interventions. And so the deal program seeks to address some of those. What I would also note in here is none of this data has factored in anything that may happen with either Santana Mines or with the Terrace Airport development. So if either of those developments go ahead, it may not mean more houses because you can only build at a certain rate, but what it will do is shore up the level of certainty. So we're saying in the report it's around about a 73% high likelihood of these going ahead. I would expect if those projects progress, that certainty level would rise. Next slide, thanks, Wayne. So just on to population, this is just reflecting back over the last 10 years. Central Otago has been one of the fastest growing regions in New Zealand. We're all aware of that. alongside the likes of Selwyn and obviously our neighbours in Queenstown. And that's really, yeah, in the last 10 years, we've seen that acceleration. What this report is telling us is that we expect that acceleration to sharper and more rapid. Next one, please, Wayne.
Do you believe that?
What I'm seeing from the conversations I've had internally, yeah, I do. The visitor population impact. This is important, and I highlight this because obviously have an infrastructure impact from our visitors. So when we build a water plant, we build it for our peak population. We know in Central Otago our peak population essentially doubles, particularly in that Christmas New Year period due to visitors in the region. So those visitors aren't directly paying for the infrastructure, but it is our resident population that has to pay for it. And of course, that's addressed in the regional deals framework as well. Next one, please, Wayne. And then our economy. We've enjoyed great growth in our economy, and our economy's outstripped the New Zealand average over the last 10 years at 3.9% growth versus the New Zealand average of 10%. And once again, we all know this, our economy is built around agriculture, construction and tourism. They make up over 30% of our total GDP region. Next one, please, Wayne. So now we start to get into some of the data. So the BAU development trend. So this is taken off data over the last 3 years. How many new dwellings were consented over that period over the last 3 years to give us what we believe is a reasonably accurate forecast of what would be built in total over the next decade. So essentially, if the BAU trend continues, we end up at 3,193 new houses across the district, just on the BAU trend. If we go to the next one, Wayne. So this is the one which is the one that could be argued. This is the large scale development pipeline. So this is from the conversations we've had through the team in planning and the interactions that they've had with potential developers who are coming in and bringing lots of 50 or more dwellings. So we're not talking anything below 50. So large, what we've termed large scale in terms of this report. We estimate there is nearly 3,500 houses in that pipeline coming through the conversations that our planning team have had, at which, as I said before, 73% of those are regarded as high degree of certainty. Just, oh yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. Then on the next slide, so this is where we put the two together. So the 100% line there, which is the bold, that is the BAU pipeline, the BAU plus the development pipeline that we just identified. So if 100% of that comes off, that's exactly how many houses would be built and how many new residents would be living in the region. The population growth factor is 2.4, which has been our standard for the last 3 years.
So that's, if a dwellings come in, it's 3 people per dwelling or
2.4 people per dwelling. Yeah. What I can tell you is if we use the high degree certainty number of dwellings that we're predicting, plus what's already in the BAU, it actually ends up at being 5,722 new dwellings, which is 86% on that scale. Yeah. So it's not far off 100%. Even if we only get at 60% of what we're predicting in there, you can still see it as growth. And if you go to the next page, please.
So they will be a resident rather than a resident owner.
Based on current statistics, which is 2.4 residents per dwelling, that will be new residents. Yes.
Just in 10 years.
Yes, in the next 10 years. And this is the population impact. And you can see that there it's obviously primarily the impact sits around the Cromwell. It does also have a smaller flow, but still a significant flow through to Vincent, and less certainty around Teviot and Maniatoto. And I think it's a fair expectation that if Cromwell grows at that rate, and Vincent grows at that rate, there will be a natural push towards both Teviot and Murray. As we've seen that happen with Queenstown's grown, Monica's grown, now it's Cromwell, and so on and so on. So while not picked up in the development pipeline, because we're not having developers come and say, I'm going to build a big lot of development in Bradford, Leewara and Roxburgh, at some point that stage will come to those parts of the district as well.
But some of these in our population will be in semi-rural land.
Correct.
Rather than this information will be in towns.
Well, this is actually across the district, but you're right, in your area, it's more like there'd be a rural development,
subdivision,
or a lifestyle type development. Correct. Right. Next page. So in here, this just outlines some of the areas we know from social infrastructure that are straining already, or will be very strained should this level of development start to come together. Next slide, please, Wayne. And these are the 5 pillars of the regional deals proposal that we're working on with our partners and obviously our central government colleagues to try to address some of these challenges. And I've been asked on a few occasions, what is in this for Central Otago? Why are we part of this conversation? Because we're not necessarily seeing a lot. So what I thought I would do is over the next couple of slides address a few of the things that are more specifically for Central Otago. So Wayne, if we could go to the next. So capturing value. So this is the one that was around visitor levies, mining royalties and affordable housing. So growth paying for growth. Essentially the region is seeking new ways to fund and finance that growth. As I discussed earlier with visitors, on peak days, we have double our resident population, but it's only the residents who are paying for the infrastructure. So the visitor levy proposal in there is about visitors contributing in some way to the development of that infrastructure, the cost of delivering that infrastructure. I've stressed it before and I'll stress it again. Mining royalties is not about a singular mine. It's not about council or the region endorsing any mining activity, but it is saying if mining activity does progress in the region, which in fact it already does, if mining activity is undertaken in the region, then the region should see some form of royalty back to help manage or deal with the impacts of activity.
And that's very clearly different than royalties you might get for land that you own.
Correct.
Which is, and I suppose the best example, if you look at Hawkeswood, yeah, that's different to the royalties. They're paying royalties to central government for mining, but the landowners are getting a lease or royalty payment for the use of the land.
Yes. So the conversation through regional deals is about the royalties going to central government. There should be a portion coming back to the region.
So that's where it sits.
That's where it sits.
So the 2% of all mining royalties you might get, or 5 in Australia, whatever percentage goes to the region it's in or to the regional deal.
But that's still in the detail to be worked through. But the point being, some portion of royalties that are currently paid to central government, some should be returned back to the region.
So the visitor levy won't be administered and picked up at the border.
To be a localised visitor levy.
And how do you implement that with a Airbnb sitting over the thing?
Airbnb is intended to be captured in that.
And how is technology going to capture that, whether short-term accommodation or a border staying different to a person coming on a flight into Queenstown and cycling down the rail trail?
So it would only capture accommodation.
How do you capture the private dwelling?
That's the easy one. It's actually the kind of, the rail trail type B&B quite straight away. They do it already internationally.
Look at one of those out.
And that's already done internationally.
Yeah.
It's actually the smaller one in the private room at the back of the house somewhere. That's the harder one.
And does the infrastructure, is the cost of that money that's being captured, how do you determine, or do we determine where that capital is spent on infrastructure, or is that spent on tourism infrastructure or cycling infrastructure? Or
so what we've said in our proposal is infrastructure and destination management or economic development. But in Queenstown have a different proposal. there's more to come in that area. So
Yeah, but I
a
guess-
long way away from where.
I guess if the average person watching this online is going, well, we might have to pay $6 or $2.50 towards every visitor that stays in their house, and it might go to pipes in Queenstown.
Yeah, yes, potentially. Yes.
Well, that's how they'll see it, won't they? I mean, they.
I think if you looked at the reverse,
The reverse argument to that, Stu.
As well.
Well, what's captured in Queenstown comes over here. So just remember it's a two-way street. It's not a one-way.
Is it?
Well, it has to be, and the key thing is the details are so far away at this stage, who knows? You know, there's going to be legislation changes here to do all this sort of stuff. It's just
That's the question. Our job is to ask those questions.
But what this all about is what the opportunities they may well bring under capturing value, and then the other pillars in the same way. And you know, you start here and you end up somewhere that'll be probably quite different.
and affordable housing, just on that, I think it's obvious to us all that live here that the more houses you build doesn't mean that housing becomes more affordable. You only need to look at the last 5 years of what's happened in our region. We've never built so many houses, yet houses have only got more expensive. So we often hear, oh, we'll just keep building more houses and eventually it'll get cheaper. It doesn't. It's not what happens. There needs to be some form of intervention to enable affordable housing, whether that's through a housing trust type model that Queenstown has or some other type of model. But without some kind of intervention, we will genuinely run the risk, not just Central Otago, but the Queenstown Lakes region as well, of not being able to house those core workers that make the community function, being educators, healthcare workers, the school bus driver. So there needs to be some form of intervention in that space for that to happen. So once again, that's a work on in there.
So go back to that one. We've decided over time, the last 3 or 4 years, not to enter into that park at the moment. But with the regional deal, we've been dragged into that park.
You've had different options on the table in front of you. You'll probably have a different option again through the regional deal constructs.
If we looked at the growth over the last 3 years and then the projected growth over the next 10, growth that's already occurred has occurred without doing any intervention for affordable housing. And there's no reason to think that the next 10 years projections not also take place without any intervention. And how much growth can you cope with? So I question the concept of affordable housing. When you've got a track record of the last 3 years, at least, but that's it, where we're probably, particularly in the Cromwell, handle all the growth you can handle without any intervention of the open market. And there's no reason that I can see why the next 10 years wouldn't proceed on the same basis. So I question whether affordable housing is actually a goal we should be putting in with mining royalties and visitor levies.
It's in there under the capturing value because there's an opportunity, I suppose, through looking at how housing growth occurs and the ability to capture a portion of that to go towards affordable housing. Hence why it sits under the capturing value.
But the open market is telling you that people can afford houses because the more houses are built, the more that get sold.
Correct.
So
but it's also, if you to the community and you speak to a school teacher or a school principal who's struggling to attract people that are critical to keeping the community functioning. And that will only exacerbate. And you only need to look at Queenstown and the challenges they're having. They can't house bus drivers.
But the point to that is in the Minnetonka, the school had its own housing, which are now being sold for a turf. And the police have a police station beside the police. The banks had bank houses because that's what they did 100 years ago to attract people to small rural communities. Now, of that, there's been a policy change of some of the professions that there used to be a doctor's residence at the hospital in Ranfurly. So there's a policy way, and I guess in a roundabout way, I'd take Nigel's point. If your growth predictions at 80% of what they're showing there, we haven't got a problem yet.
We have a problem with who is making up that 18%. And we are skewing the demographics to a very particular set of people who can afford a $1.3 million house in Pies and Moorings. And that is not the people who are driving our kids to school on the bus, teaching our children, policing our towns. We've got a real demographic that are not able to be housed within the growth that we have currently. And I look at the 200 plus people who are currently living at the chalets in Cromwell. When those chalets close, there is nowhere for those people to go, and they fill core roles in our community that won't be undertaken by people who are sitting in their $1.3 million house.
So we're now playing God and being a social agency. That's what you're saying.
No, I don't think we're playing God and being a social agency. I think we're saying our community is made up by a wide variety of people, and if you only have a certain subset of people in your community, you really struggle to provide services, because these people who own their own home, and many of them might be mortgage free, they are not working in our libraries. They're not the lifeguards at our pools. We can't drive in people from 3 hours away to fill a lifeguard spot at the pool because we can't house them in our town.
And also, I think we need to get a head around what the regional deals is actually about. And it's not about us spending money. It's not about the government spending money. It's about saying, how can we make sure that the things that the community needs to have to be effective, efficient, and be what people want it to be going forward is there, and do our part towards it. There's nothing here about us putting money into it. But if you're not looking at those issues and finding ways to encourage other agencies to say, who's the housing, the old housing corp, whatever they're called these days, to say, you need to put some housing available. We need to have these sort of places for people.
The only way you can have affordable housing driven by a council is to find money. And you can look at the Queenstown example about how they found money by taxing a certain class of developer.
But it's not the only way. There are other agencies who have that role within central government. Housing New Zealand, whatever it's now called, whatever it is, those sort of,
which I think is my point. We're not central government.
No, but we've got to make sure that we can encourage it, because we need them to come here. And if this council and other councils aren't going to say we're going to go down a model of providing that sort of housing like Queenstown does, then you've got to find some other way of trying to fix the issues, or address the issues that are in your community. You can't just ignore them, hope they're going to go away, because we're going to be. The best example is the chalets. If that chalets goes, and those people that are currently living there, which is families as well, then there's some employers with some big issues. So you can't ignore them. You've got to look at going, what can we do to encourage and try and get the support that the community needs to make the difference going forward.
And I'd agree with that in terms of facilitating consenting and making it efficient and cost effective, and all the other regulatory functions that council have in developing housing. We need to be as lean and as efficient and facilitating as we can. But beyond that, I see it as difficult to see what else council can do. Your planning regime can help.
I think, sorry, Nigel, if I could jump in. I think this is the point of regional deals.
Sorry?
The point of regional deals is to work with central government and our council partners and other agencies, which include private and public, to think differently. So it's not, don't be constrained by what council currently does with its current construct. How can it be dealt with in a different way? That's the whole intent of what regional deals.
That doesn't mean money.
It doesn't mean money.
That's what it means.
Local council got certain tools, and they're reasonably clear what they are. And all I'm saying is if you looked at the history of CODC and in particular the Cromwell Ward over the last, let's say, 10 years, but we've got figures for 3 years, there is little evidence that the market has not taken care of the diversity of growth population that is required in the growth of the economy.
I think if you went and talked to a lot of the employers around here, they'd tell you something quite different about their ability to retain and attract and get staff and all that sort of thing. It just isn't that simple.
Well, nevertheless, the economy as set on target has grown well ahead of the national average over the last few years. So it's all sort of problems.
But all this do is that we're not going to ignore them. Like we should.
We'll move to the next slide, please, mate. Transport. So yes, you've all seen the media, I'm sure. The primary shiny toy, I suppose, of the transport ask is around a gondola in the Queenstown Basin. That has a secondary positive for of people in Central Otago. If you are going or working in Queenstown, being able to get in and out of Queenstown without getting stuck in traffic, that's not a bad thing because it means you get home to your family faster. But for us, this is more about being part of a regional network, planned regional network, which going well would mean we also become prioritised in terms of NZTA spend across the projects in the country. And of course, connecting us with a public bus network that connects Alexandra, Cromwell, Wanaka, Queenstown together. So you ask what's in it for Central Otago, those are the things we're really pushing for in the transport space. Next one, please, Wayne.
Go back to that one though, just how, like I've brought it up several times at this meeting, but when we go to Otago regional roading, and then we talk about our roading subsidy for us, and there's discrepancies between us and our neighbours, but our neighbours aren't in the regional deal. Are they some of the things we should be looking at for subsidy, our part of government subsidy coming up, so we can do some of the stuff for joint infrastructure? And then how do we have priority over Transit New Zealand's spending models? I mean, I totally agree that if we can get some of that money that's now going to Te Anau or to the roading and the Edendale corner, that's, you know, or road transport is not only just roads. And I get that's the problem. The frustration is as long as a group can make sure that New Zealand Transport Agency looks at more here, but the same will be happening in regional deals elsewhere. How do we know that we're getting to tap that, I guess I'm saying?
Yeah, I suppose probably similar comment I just made to Nigel is regional deals is about thinking differently and working differently. And so it's about, we've never had a truly regional, when I say regional, Queenstown Lakes Central Otago transport plan or networked plan. And that's what we're trying to develop here, which in theory should be able to get priority with NZTA.
Other than when I sit every 6 weeks on one that says Otago South and Regional Roading Group.
Yes.
It's half of that group.
Electrifying Otago Central Lakes. So the priority in here for Central Otago is around being a pilot for the rooftop solar scheme. So that's creating resilience for our people in their own homes, but more importantly, giving them cheaper power bills, which we all know where power is going. And once again, also a future fit network for our region, of which we are a consumer. Yes, there's the piece about Queenstown. Queenstown's at a point where it's going to need an additional line to go into Queenstown to deal with its demands, but we're starting to see similar demands or potential pressure points in our future as well. So being part of that network development once again. Next one, please, Wayne. I probably don't need to speak about this one too much. I think we all know the healthcare challenges in our region. So this is about really developing, once again, a networked plan about what healthcare services are required in the region, looking at the data and forecasting what's going to be required, and then identifying where those services are built. Sorry, what those facilities are and where they may be built. And there'll be a mixture of public and private investments in those. So capitalising on the opportunities that are being presented by the private sector at the moment and mixing that in with the public sector and future needs of the region.
Just being the carrier of that information.
Sorry.
Well, I guess blending that information private public, because at the end of the day, health is its own beast within the government.
Correct. Yes. But yeah,
and it's not now tram line, really.
No, not at all. But just, I guess we're being, through the regional deals, we're being a bit of a conduit to getting the data, getting the information, and then making the best decisions for the future about where that investment should go.
Big connection for this one back into some of that capturing value from the first one, like the affordable housing side of things. With housing comes all these pressures, and Tanga was talking about the $1.3 million person in Pies and Moorings who's probably requiring the healthcare. The people that are in the houses that's deemed affordable so far still require the healthcare. Yes. It's generally not here.
Yeah. There's the interconnectedness of a number of these packages as well, which is there as well. And then last one, please, Wayne. It's just around the visitors and investors pillar. So obviously there are a number of gains in here for Central Otago, whether that's attracting investment, whether that's developing new productive sectors. And we already know we've got a small tech sector, but we've got people interested in developing a further tech sector. greater levels of support for our existing sectors, so whether that be agriculture, film or tourism, and also working alongside the tertiary sector to make sure that actually the tertiary sector in our region is fit for purpose for the industry that we have, and ensuring that that talent pipeline is being appropriately addressed for what the future needs of industry are in our region. We are without doubt seeing increased interest in Central Otago for investment. In fact, I've got an example where I was at a conference 2 weeks ago around hotel development and investment, and Cromwell was specifically mentioned by the presenter on the stage as a place primed for hotel development opportunity and investment. So we are on the radar. It's now about how do we get that right level of investment and attract the right investment. Stu, I know you'll click me because I haven't mentioned it, so I will mention it specifically, Falls Dam. So Falls Dam I haven't mentioned directly because it actually kind of fits under two pillars, and this is the interconnectedness of these things. So Falls Dam fits under value capture. It also fits under visitors and investors, and it's about, we know by raising Falls Dam, there'll be direct outcomes the agricultural sector, but there'll also be outcomes for those rural communities, and also unlock the opportunity for growth and potentially affordable housing in other areas of our district as well. So there's these flow-on or interdependencies between these things. So I just wanted to assure you, Stu, Falls Dam is absolutely in the conversation and in the mix. Before you tell me off.
Well, I mean, that's something in our corner compared to,
absolutely, it's
not in someone else's corner.
Correct.
Because I was about to ask the question that you just preempted with your comments, but I would have thought that it would be nice to actually see it in print as part of a report rather than.
There's no reason why I can't go on a report in print.
It's on the record now in the conversation.
And a couple of last points around, I guess, just touching on communication and openness of the negotiations. So it's a process that's been developed along the way, and it's new to everyone. It's new to local government, it's new to central government. And so we're learning that sometimes the processes we've thought are robust and in place don't necessarily work when they get challenged or people ask questions. So last week, for example, the week before, sorry, when Joint Committee met, they agreed that councillors should be able to be part of and listen to the public excluded sections of the Joint Committee meeting. There is no legal framework that allows them not to be included. So that will be opened up to councillors to be part of it. So councillors shouldn't be. But the reason it's not open to the broader public is, as you can probably appreciate, there are negotiations going on between Otago Central Lakes partners and between private sector interests that are delicate and need to just be worked through that process. But there's no reason why councillors can't be part of that as representatives of their communities. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there.
Well, it did come up at the hearings panel I was at that people were saying, look, this looks secretive. And to be fair, unless you go through the agenda of the meeting yourself, there's a lot of stuff that's not there. And I guess if you're looking at transparency and the average person goes, what does it actually do? And they can't see it, feel it, taste it. It does create that.
Yes, there's a little bit of that, you know, it is a negotiation, and as Dylan said, it's the beginnings of a process that nobody has been a part of before. And when you're going in to negotiate about buying some cattle, you don't open your wallet and put all your money on the table and say, here's what I've got, what are you selling? So it's
you know that you're going to the sale.
You do know that you're going to the sale, and our communities know that we are at the sale. What do you think?
Sold.
No, I guess that
sold, traded, otherwise good for. What is the process, Dylan, for that next kind of step? If something comes up that requires public consultation, how will it be?
Oh, look, it's no different to any other process we would typically follow. So if there's a matter that requires consultation with the community, then it will be consulted on with the community. It is the significance of engagement policy is there to capture exactly that. It's a thing that we've already consulted on, and councillors are comfortable that that's okay with already what's now being proposed and hasn't changed significantly, then it can progress. But just like our normal policy states, anything that requires consultation must be consulted on.
And the key thing about that is that the regional, well, the committee, the Otago Central Lakes for the regional deals, has no authority to commit councils individually, collectively, whatever, for anything. There is no way that our representatives can sign us up to something that's going to have implications for us, because we've got our processes we must follow to go from that. So the thoughts of anything about saying it's because it's going to result in an amalgamation, or is it an amalgamation, or some sort of conglomeration that's been formed, same things. For that to ever happen is going to require either us to be able to, as a council, to make certain decisions, or central government will legislate and do what they'll do, which they always want to do anyway. I guess to me it becomes quite simple. There is nothing to lose here. There is a whole lot to potentially gain. The trouble is that the way it's been, what's the word? The way it's been delivered from central government does give no clarity to the wider community. Can't and don't have access to the same information, or they do, but it's so flipping hard to try and understand, find, and comprehend.
I mean, I see it, and I've been probably the first to be critical of the system, because it's really got a big juggernaut sitting at one end. And it's a great brainstorming opportunity for us to have a really rigorous discussion at that table. But yet the person that lined me up the other day is saying, well, look, we're not even having it say, we're not even understanding what's being said at that table. And the real risk is we're going through an election now where our table looks different from what we understood, and the government in 18 months are going through a table where they're standing on a really thin bit of ice at the moment, where the people are saying the same. So we could have a lot of work. I mean, admittedly, 30-year plan is on all for that. 40-year plan would be better, because if we want to look at that big level, the helicopter view, we want to look that far apart. But the reality is we may look different in 20 years' time as a regulatory authority, and the government's going to change 3 times in that time. So, I understand having to get that across, but at the end of the day, all you are talking about effectively is how you're going to look at health in 30 years' time, how you're going to look at infrastructure in 30 years' time, how you're going to look at investment. And ultimately, the government should know that, because if they're doing their work and dealing with their plans that we take to the mayor and chief executive forums, everything we local government New Zealand, that's information there. But
yeah. Sorry. I was just going to say, and I think this is the reason we were chosen, along with the other 2 regions, Tauranga and is we present some unique challenges. The growth that we're seeing is the unique challenge, particularly for our region, but also the unique opportunities that these regions have. Here's a bit of a investment shop front, a pilot region where we can pilot things. We're open to thinking differently and trying new things, and government's gone, okay, well, we'll work with you. We will, and I genuinely believe there is an intent by government to work with us. It's not to come down here and tell us you will do this and you will do that. It does genuinely feel like a partnership, and that's why we've been chosen. So I'm feeling positive about the process, although we are still learning, as I say, and going through this process, and it's new to everyone. So we will make mistakes along the way. That is just the reality.
I just wanted to put a shout out for the Teviot Valley, because I know we're not Cromwell or Alex, but it'd be good if we could think about the whole district as much as we can. I know that it's probably quite centric to where the big growth is, but we'd still like opportunities down our way as well.
And I think a lot of those are not going to be opportunities that are in black and white on a piece of paper. And that's the same for Wanaka, for Makarora, for Glenorchy, for Kingston. What is good for the centre has the flow-on effects like what Dylan was talking about. But it doesn't mean that every community is going to see this is what Paria is getting, this is what Miller's Flat is getting. It's going to be, there are some big picture things in the middle, hopefully, if we can get to the point of a deal, and it'll be the flow-on stuff for some of those smaller communities as opposed to something shiny.
I mean, to be fair to say, the government's intent is to double agriculture, double tourism in 50 years' time.
Yeah.
86% of the GDP of the Teviot comes from agriculture and horticulture.
Yes.
You would hope that percentage of what we do is actually realised within the group.
Yes. There will absolutely be, and it's not written down in paper, obviously, because it's not defined yet, but there will absolutely be flow-ons for the Teviot Valley, whether that's
Anything else? Sorry.
You need a.
So getting down the track, how many partners are the government going to work with?
It's 3
Yeah,
groups that they're working with right now.
but what's the final?
Well, they haven't said beyond that initial 3, but the initial 3, they would hope to have at least all signed deal version number 1 by middle of next year.
So you were saying that it would be 4
It was 4
regions,
initially.
and then one region would be the
First,
successful.
no, so I think, sorry, I may have been slightly wrong. Select 4, 1 would be number 1, then 2 more in progress. And essentially now what they've said is scrap that, again, learning, new process. 3 deals, 3 regions have been selected, 3 deals in negotiations for a deal. All 3 going well would be signed off by the middle of next year at the latest. Now, and I should probably point that out too, and it's good for the public to hear this as well, is that whatever is signed off in deal number 1 isn't the only deal, and it probably won't have everything we've asked for. I can almost guarantee it won't have everything we've asked for, but there will be future iterations of deal number 1 to deal number 2 and so on, or deal number 1 becomes a platform to enabling some of these other things, but not everything will be resolved in deal number 1. Understand that.
And no deal was guaranteed.
And no deal is guaranteed.
There's a negotiation. Right, any final comments on that? Right, page 50 is the recommendation. Receive, I think, as yes, receive the report. I'm happy to move that. Someone happy to second it? Cheryl, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Amelia has been waiting so patiently. To page 135, please. There's an organisational business plan final results. So business plans, the annual complete result for these. So the business plans are split into 2 different sections: the performance results, which are our internal facing measures, and the performance measures, which are our external facing measures. So across the performance results, we had a total of 18 of those, and 12 were fully met, which included delivery of the annual report, the long-term plan, and reporting on organisational performance. Finance relationship managers are now in place. Digital information strategy and procurement policy reviews and health and safety wellbeing initiatives have all been implemented. And the customer enhancement project has been implemented with increases in community engagement. The digitisation project was also completed, which was incorporated into the latest long-term plan. And both of the results relating to our Te Tiriti o Waitangi obligations have been met. So there are a few in there, 6 that haven't been fully met, but those are underway. So we've got the district and organisational vision projects which have been completed, but those visions need to be fully incorporated into strategies and plans. So that's the next step, which means that's not quite fully met yet, but almost there. Project management improvement and business continuity projects are underway, but the timeframes for completion of those have been extended. And sort of the biggest one on the internal performance results that wasn't met was delivery against the 24-25 annual plan. So we had a target of 80% delivery against that, but only 74% of capital budgets were spent in the year. Just need to caveat that with that is not an audited figure, but that's where we are at the moment. On the performance measures, which are external facing and will sit in our annual report, which will be brought in draft to the Audit and Risk Committee in September, there are a total of 71 performance measures, and of those throughout the year we achieved 46 and did not achieve 25. So last month, when we discussed some of the targets that had not been met in detail, a lot of the discussion was around the 25 that have not met. And a lot of what we're seeing is in relation to figures such as number of fatal and serious crashes, which we had said we want a stable or decreasing trend. And this isn't attributable to our roading network, but what we have seen is that in the last financial year we had 4 and a total of 11 this financial year, which is quite an increase. So we've not met that target. Again on roading, the percentage of sealed road length resurfaced has not been met. But again, in this area, what we've set as our target has actually been unaffordable for us within that financial year. So we have increased budget through the LTP, and hopefully the target and what's achievable will be put together next year. Again, touched on last month was the amount of waste to landfill per rateable property, which again has not been met because that target is a year-on-year reduction, and we have seen a very slight increase there. But we do think that that has impacts from us not quite understanding the increase in rateable properties throughout the year. So we think that there are additional properties that could be added into that that are not counted for.
Thanks, John.
In addition, we have not managed to achieve an incremental reduction in our carbon footprint or incremental percentage improvements in terms of compliance with resource consents for transfer stations. But on that measure, we have continued to have a 94% compliance rating, but that is not an annual report. So there's actually no way we could have improved year on year in that space. In terms of planning, both of the measures there were not achieved. So that was maintaining customer satisfaction and resource consents processed within the statutory time frame. Again, we talked about those resource consents last month. In building services, we did have one non-achievement, which was achieving 98% of building consents within the statutory time frame. And again, that one had quite a bit of focus last month. Improvements though, environmental health, percentage of food business verifications carried out within the required Food Act performance-based verification frequency was not met last year, but has been achieved this year. So that is an improvement. Continuing on to pools, parks and cemeteries, we didn't manage to achieve the satisfaction with cemeteries and the burial process above 90%. We're not sure why that has occurred. We had no additional comments in our satisfaction survey around that. And satisfaction with playgrounds, this one as a year 4 of the previous LTP measure meant that our target was increased for year 4 and onward. So maintain satisfaction with playgrounds at above 90%. Whilst it was met last year at 87, that's because our target was lower last year. So this year it's not that much different at 84%, but we moved the goalposts for year 4.
I did just have one question on the burial one, because it talks about a customer survey. How soon are we sending an email or whatever to someone who's just buried someone to say, how did we do? And asking them, is that how it works?
I don't think that is how it works, David.
I hope that's not how it works.
Not yet, but that is the goal, is to get to that point. So we have put some new technology in that's starting to allow that process.
To be clear, I don't want to see someone get 3 days after they've buried someone an email saying, please fill out our survey on how we did burying your loved one.
I hear what you're saying.
That's great.
Well, to be able to understand the level of service that we're providing, we're hoping to be able to do something soon, once a year.
So how do you judge it?
Once
But obviously,
could be a rating, you know.
yeah, but I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that it's a pretty private time, and we've had one in our corner with the absolutely thought council were fantastic because they met the family's wishes. Now, you cannot measure that on a percentage of 87, 84 to 90.
That's right, yeah.
And if it's only talking at a small number over a percentage of people buried in a town or an area, so the whole council, people in Minnetonka will say you're a fantastic group to deal with, you're amazing, but it won't be relevant to percentage gain. I guess it's pretty hard having a metric there. You know, it's a bit picky, I guess I'm saying.
Yeah, it is hard to get perfect metrics, you know, because we do offer so many different services, and whether it's, you know, with someone's bin or cemetery or labouring, something like that, there are different levels of service that people expect. I think even our cemeteries, we still try to improve turnaround time, you know, whether they're doing their own private interment, for example. You know, there is lots of different variations in how us, and we can get better when we understand the experiences they have as well.
This information comes from a survey from the resident opinion survey. So the question was about cemeteries and the burial process. Just because they're probably upset because Cromwell Cemetery hasn't got a rabbit-proof fence around it, and I don't think many people will have an issue about the burial process, because if you do, you generally hear about that pretty quickly, because the grief's a great thing to do that. So I think you be careful we don't over-analyse the result of the question that was asked. And I suspect if you go and look at it, probably look at the Cromwell ward and see how many people are upset because there's no rabbit-proof fence. And
to be fair, I'll go back to the one I was going to bring up about the road crashes. It's a pretty tricky one to turn around and have a target where
it's a nonsense target. You can't control it. Shouldn't be there.
And bullshit. You know, some of those, yeah. And I guess if that becomes an issue down the road, and some of that could be a mental health issue, it could have been a complete, but it now goes against a measurement of our staff and our road and infrastructure when really some of it isn't. Yeah. And I guess if everyone looked at that and you go through an outside group come in and say, you're not doing this, and look what you got, you haven't met your targets. Well, it's very hard. It's hard on staff. It must be harder on staff to meet some of those targets as for us.
Reality is that we're getting surveys for everything. You ring Sparks, you got a problem, and they'll say, oh, would you like to do your survey at the end? You go and get your tyres changed. Oh, here's a survey to see how our service was. I came to you because I needed the service. To be honest, it's drives everyone mad.
Sorry,
yeah.
No, it's fine. Just on going back to that road one, in terms of the Safe Roading Network, that is a DIA measure, so we are required to still roll around next year. So we were in pools, parks and cemeteries. We have seen again this one, the percentage of customer survey respondents satisfied with pools and the programmes offered. This was another one where our year 4 target increased. So in year 4 was a 90% target. So whilst we met that target last year where it was lower, it was 80% and it met. This year we were 89%. So we have improved there, but because the goalpost moved, we haven't achieved that measure. So this is just a symptom of having a very rare 4-year LTP. So we built our measures for a 3-year period and then measured from year 4 to 10 a change, and we were kind of never anticipating that we would be in year 4. So some of these, obviously that one was an improvement but hasn't actually achieved the target. Property and community, on this one we achieved 4 of the 5, but again we had an improvement here, but our target for percentage of customer survey respondents satisfied with community buildings is 90%, and we reached 75%. There were no identifying comments as to what improvements we could make in that space from our resident opinion survey. On to service centres and libraries. Customer survey, the service was fast and efficient. On this one, we did have a minor drop from 76 last year to 74% this year, but we are continuing to improve in that space. Issues were dealt with effectively. Again, was a small drop there, but because of the changes that we've seen in legislation, and requirements, we have seen that there have been some efficiency issues over the year. Service was fast and efficient. That one we maintained the same rating year on year, but that has not quite achieved target. And issues dealt with effectively. Again, we maintained the same rating, but didn't quite meet target there. Communications and engagement. Again, whilst we saw an increase in the number of respondents who feel they're informed about council activities, so that increased 61 to 71% this year, that's still not met the target. On to skip over community development, we've achieved that target. Economic development, percentage of respondents to the customer survey who are satisfied with the type of economic development activity that council is involved in. That one, whilst it has seen a minor improvement this year, still didn't meet the target. Tourism, a slightly different trend here. We did see that this dropped from 75% last year to 63% this year. But we do feel like that is in relation to a challenging period for tourism in general. So that was the respondents to the survey who were satisfied that visitors to the district enrich the quality of life for residents. Moving on, governance. So again, an increase, but still not meeting target on respondents satisfied that elected members are making a positive difference. So we have seen an increase to 51%, which is a whole 11% jump.
I wonder how much of these weed jumps in the governance and is to the long-term plan where they might have lost their swimming pools and they might have lost their halls and they may have lost services that got them engaged, and that was the lift that we've had.
I mean, I don't know if we have any trend data nationally to compare that against, but it will be interesting to see if there is such a thing. So next up, we are into the water measures. So we achieved the majority of measures in relation to water. We didn't achieve the target for the number of dry weather sewerage overflows from the sewerage scheme, which should be lower than 1 per 1,000 connections. And we did see a significant improvement this year, but it was at 1.04 per 1,000 connections. So we just missed.
By 4 people, by 4 connections.
Well,
you would have been good if you had rounded down. It doesn't say 0.00 for the target, so I think you.
And we did see that is so that 1.04 is a total of 10 overflows in the whole year. So 40% were caused by non-flushable items being put into the wastewater system. You may remember we had some underpants in the Alexandra wastewater system.
Put them in the washing basket.
And another 3 were caused by tree roots growing into the pipes. So we did understand why we had the majority of those events through the year. Next up on the next page is the response time to urgent call outs. So the target time to get to site is less than 1 hour. And we did see that this increased fairly significantly across this year. So it went from 1 hour, 18 minutes in 23-24 to 3 hours and 11 minutes. However, the new operations and maintenance contract allows for a 2 and 4 hour response time for urgent call outs if the issue is further than 40 kilometres from Alexandra, which is the base for those workers. So that actually is going to allow for better measurement of how we're doing in that space. Again, for target median time to resolve issues, that's supposed to be under 4 hours, and we saw a significant increase this year, but that's due to the initial misclassification of fault severity and repair delays. So again, that's going to be, should be improved through the new operations contracts. And that is the last on-met measure of the lot, and you'll find underneath all the measures that there is a full compliance to the bacterial and protozoal requirements of the Water Services Regulations report, if you would like to delve into that. Thank you very much. Amelia, any questions on any of those that haven't been covered off already?
So what happens next in terms of the results we've got? The annual report will reflect a lot of them.
Yes.
And then the LTP puts the targets in place going forward. But the organisational one, the internal facing ones. So is there another session for us to work that through about what's coming next, or have we already worked through that and not forgotten?
So that is currently in progress. So that's a led piece of work. So to define what those internal measures look like this year, and then we'll be bringing them to yourselves to review those. But yeah, we are hoping to focus more on things that we can really measure.
Let's say measure out loud.
We can influence.
Oh, sorry.
Control.
So obviously, if you've got any thoughts or feedback of those internal measures, then we would happily hear them up front.
Thank you.
Question.
Tracy.
Yeah, probably to Peter, 35% stuff not being done. That's it.
In CapEx?
As in 30, when you're looking at that as a performance measure, and I agree, some of those aren't really, some of them are completely out of anybody's control. But as a percentage, where do you think we should be sitting at?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the statutory ones we like to be compliant with. The reality is that's a challenge. I mean, the water one is definitely a challenge when you have call out staff based in Alex and you got a response in the Sticks or Patearoa or something like that. There's those challenges. But yeah, look, it's fair to say that we would like to see a pathway to increase our ability to meet our key performance measures. That's what you hold me to account for. That's what's in our LTP. That's what we've said we're going to. So we have to, as a staff, make sure that we look to address these. We will have challenges. I mean, the resource consents when you're a high growth council and you have the staffing numbers that we have and the complexity of resource consents we're seeing now and the comments for hearing panels and all that sort of stuff, because of those complexities, they all add time and challenge. So there'll be some ones there that we will struggle to address in significant ways just because it's beyond the ability of small councils to be able to address some of those, but we'll be working hard to close the gaps where we can.
Do you think that the potential changes in the building consent process will enable us to speed that up to a significant degree?
Yeah,
too long.
That's I mean, but yeah, most definitely. If they're talking about potential amalgamation of building control authorities and all those sorts of things, then that might be a positive to share limited resources. Of course, they have to change the law around joint and several liability, because right now our ratepayers are liable for an error their building contractor could have done 15 years ago. And until they change that law, councils will be risk averse because we know where the burden sits ultimately down the track when everyone else is headed for the hills. We're still here.
Holding the baby.
Tracy, where do you get a percentage from your rating?
I just calculate that percentage of the performance measures totals.
Okay.
71, 40.
Yeah, 71,
25 not achieved.
On there, Chip.
Yeah, okay, right. Yeah, sorry, I was looking at the wrong column. Gotcha.
Yes.
My very basic maths.
Okay.
And we
Mathematician there.
have talked about capital budgets already.
Yeah. Very good company.
We are a good company.
Any final questions on that?
That's a pretty thorough document, as long as some of those wee minuscule numbers don't get in the way of the good work that's being done and people beat themselves up about it. I guess it's.
And that's what we're striving for every year, is to improve on what we did last year.
But when one tree root can upset the
Here is Spider-Man.
1% percentage by 0.3, and then let's get real about how the factor happens. If it's
Well, there's also the factors that cause some of these things. If people didn't flush those things in the toilet, it wouldn't happen in the first place. You know, so in a whole lot of stuff you don't actually control. So the performance measures you set, you try and say this would be a great number to get, but actually the level of control you have over most of them is very, very low. And it starts to make a bit of a mockery of saying, well, you know, how can I control who flushes what in the toilet?
Nigel.
Yes.
Sorry.
I'm happy to move that the report be received.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Tracy. Sorry, Sally. I was looking at-
What time lunch?
All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carries. Thank you very much, Amelia. We will break for lunch and we will be back here at 2:25.
We were 2 hours ahead of an hour, 20 minutes late for lunch.
Yeah, I know.
What's going on?